I never thought my quiet suburban street would turn into a war zone. Not the kind with bullets and bombs, but the kind where the enemy smiled in your face, waved at your mailbox, and then gutted you with a rulebook. It started with a letter, plain white envelope, no return address, slid under my front door like a snake. Inside was a notice from the PTA, 3 sentences long but heavy as a death sentence. Violation, unauthorized Wi-Fi activity. Fine, $500 per day until resolved, effective immediately. I read it 3 times, certain I'd missed a joke somewhere. Unauthorized Wi-Fi? How the hell did the PTA even know what was going on inside my router? That was the moment I realized this wasn't about late dues or bake sales anymore. This was something darker. Because here's the truth. My 16-year-old daughter had just locked them out. Sophie, my brilliant, stubborn hacker kid, had found their claws buried deep in our internet, stealing bandwidth like it was Halloween candy. She cut them off, shut the door, and for that, we were being fined into oblivion. The president herself, Raymond's right-hand woman Linda, called it a security audit to protect the children. I called it what it really was: sabotage, retaliation, a power trip dressed in a pantsuit. I should have laughed it off, tossed the letter, gone back to mowing my lawn like a normal dad. But the thing is, the only thing stolen that day wasn't bandwidth. It was my self-control. Because when someone messes with my family, when they step onto my turf and start pulling strings like I'm just another puppet, they don't just get a neighbor with a complaint, they get me. And I was about to learn that the smiling faces running our perfect little neighborhood weren't neighbors at all. They were predators. And this was the first shot in a war I never asked for, but damn sure wasn't going to lose. Saturday mornings used to be simple, the smell of coffee drifting through the kitchen, my wife humming while she watered the basil in her garden, Sophie buried in her phone while pretending not to listen to us talk. Even the lawnmower had its rhythm, a steady roar that meant I was winning the eternal war against crabgrass. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. That morning, I was halfway through cutting the front yard, sweat dripping down my back, when I heard it. The voice, sharp, nasal, slicing through the engine's growl like a whistle through glass. "You're a quarter-inch too low." I didn't even need to turn around. Everybody in Ridgewood knew that voice. Linda Prescott, PTA president, self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, and walking definition of weaponized beige. I shut off the mower. The sudden silence was almost violent. Slowly I turned. There she was. Arms crossed, clipboard hugged to her chest like a royal decree. Beige pantsuit, helmet hair, lips pursed so tight it looked like she was sucking a lemon through a straw. "Excuse me?" I asked, though I'd heard her perfectly. Sometimes you just want to make them say it again, to hear the ridiculousness out loud. "Your mower deck," she said, tapping her pen against the clipboard. "Article 6, Section B of the Neighborhood Guidelines. Grass must be maintained between 2 and 3 inches. You're scalping it." Unsightly. I looked at the grass. Green, even, alive. Looked like grass to me. "It's my yard, Linda. I'll cut it how I want." Her smile was thin, reptilian. "It may be your yard, but it's our neighborhood, and I intend to preserve our property values." Checkmark, scribble. She tore off a slip and handed it to me like a parking ticket. Violation notice. Fine, 50. My jaw tightened. $50 for mowing my own lawn. From the porch, Emily appeared with a glass of iced tea, concern etched in her eyes. She had that calm strength, the kind that could either pull me back or push me forward, depending on the moment. "Is everything all right?" she asked carefully. Linda's smile turned syrupy sweet. "Oh, everything's fine. Just a friendly reminder to keep the neighborhood looking tidy." She said tidy like it was a threat. I crumpled the notice in my fist. My pulse pounded in my ears. This wasn't about grass. It wasn't even about the $50. This was about control. And standing there on my driveway, sweat and dust clinging to my shirt, I realized something. Linda Prescott hadn't just drawn a line in the sod. She'd drawn a line in the sand, and I'd just stepped over it. Friday nights in our house were sacred. Popcorn on the stove, a movie we'd all seen 100 times, and the rare miracle of my 16-year-old daughter willingly sitting on the couch with her parents. That night started no different. Emily poured iced tea into tall glasses. Sophie flopped between us with her blanket, and I queued up a cheesy action flick full of explosions and one-liners. I hit play, and for 30 glorious seconds, life was normal. Then the spinning circle of doom appeared, buffering. I frowned, poked the remote. Must be the Wi-Fi. It's been crawling all week, Sophie muttered, not even looking up from her phone. Like, unusable. Maybe a squirrel chewed the line again, I said, heading for the router. I pulled the plug, counted to 10, plugged it back in. Same result. 30 seconds of movie, then freeze. Movie night's ruined, I grumbled, dropping onto the couch. Thanks, Internet. Sophie's head popped up, eyes sharp now. Hold on. Let me check something. She vanished into her room, the one I jokingly called Mission Control. Multiple monitors, wires everywhere, the faint hum of a dozen machines doing whatever teenage geniuses made them do. 20 minutes later, she came back out, hair even messier than before, face pale with something between confusion and fury. So, she said, I found the problem. Great, what is it? I asked. Don't tell me another squirrel. Nope, she crossed her arms. It's not a squirrel, it's someone stealing our bandwidth, like 80% of it, rerouted before it even hits our devices. Emily sat up straight. Stealing it? Who would do that? Sophie ran a hand through her hair. I traced the signal. It's bouncing through a central hub, physically close, like really close, and you're not going to believe where it's ending up. Try me, I said. The school, the PTA clubhouse server. The words landed like a brick in my chest. For a second, I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline. None came. You're telling me, I said slowly, that the PTA is hijacking our Wi-Fi? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Sophie snapped. And not just ours. It looks like they're pulling from every house in the neighborhood. But us, we're getting slammed harder than anyone. Emily's eyes darted between us. Why us? Sophie shrugged. Maybe because you mouthed off about the grass? My throat went dry. Linda. It was retaliation. She couldn't find me enough for mowing too low, so she'd found another way. Inside our own home, in our living room, in our router. That's insane, I muttered. Who would believe it? Who's going to buy that the PTA president is secretly some kind of internet pirate? Sophie's grin turned sharp, dangerous. We don't need them to believe it. We just need to lock her out. I blinked. You can do that? She gave me the same look she used to give me when I asked if she could beat a video game level. Dad, please. Something in her expression, the glint in her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw, ignited the hot-headed part of me I'd been trying to keep buried. Linda had invaded my house. She'd messed with my family. Do it, I said. Emily's head whipped toward me. Mark! But Sophie was already halfway down the hall, the clack-clack of her keyboard filling the air like a firing squad. Minutes later, she returned, triumphant. Done! They're out! And I dropped a new firewall on them with a 32-character password. Good luck, Linda. I almost laughed, the first real laugh in weeks. But across the street, in the glow of her tablet, Linda Prescott's face twisted white as her security dashboard flashed red. A single phrase blinked across the screen. Node disconnected. Source compromised. And right then, for the first time, the Queen of Ridgewood looked afraid. We'd fought back. We'd won a battle. But as I sat in the quiet living room, the knot in my stomach told me one thing. Linda Prescott wasn't going to walk away. She was going to come back. And when she did, she'd come harder. The victory lasted 17 hours. By the next morning, I woke to sunlight, coffee, and a neon orange sticker plastered across my car window. Final towing warning. Big block letters screamed at me like an eviction notice. The fine print cited Article 6, no vehicle shall remain parked on the street for more than 12 consecutive hours. Except my car hadn't been on the street. It was in my own driveway. I peeled it off, slapped it on the kitchen counter, and growled, She's not even trying to hide it anymore. Emily sipped her coffee, grim. This is retaliation for the internet. She knows. Of course she knows, I snapped. Her evil master plan to stream 10 movies at once must have crashed, and now she's out for blood. The rest of the week was open season. Monday, a fine for improperly stored recycling bins. Translation, we rolled them out the night before trash day instead of waiting until dawn. Tuesday, a citation for a single weed poking through the sidewalk crack. Wednesday, another orange sticker, this one claiming our mailbox wasn't polished to community standards. By Thursday, the stack of notices on our counter looked like a ransom note, and then came Friday. That morning, I opened the front door to find an envelope slipped under the mat. Not the usual slapdash ticket. This one was official, letterhead, bold font, signature at the bottom. Violation, creation of a hostile and unapproved wireless network. Fine, $500 per day until disabled. I read it out loud, my voice dripping with disbelief. Hostile Wi-Fi? Is that even a thing? What am I supposed to do, beam angry thoughts at her router? Sophie snatched the paper, scanning it. She's making it up as she goes. None of this language exists in the bylaws. Well, it's sticking, I said, gesturing to the pile. We're already up to $500 in fines. We can't keep bleeding like this. Emily rubbed her temples. She's testing us, pushing to see how far she can go before we break. Break. The word stuck in my head like a nail. That's what she wanted, for us to fold, to roll over, to accept her kingdom of beige and clipboard tyranny. I stormed across the street to confront her directly. She was at the clubhouse, supervising some landscapers as they replanted, of course, petunias in the only approved shade of pink. "Karen," I barked. "Enough!" Her eyes flicked to me, cold as ice. "If this is about the towing notice, your vehicle was in violation. My car was in my driveway, and you know it," I shot back. "The weed, the bins, the mailbox, this is harassment." She actually laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. Harassment is a strong word. I call it diligent enforcement of the community standards. Standards you agreed to when you bought your home. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "This is about the Wi-Fi, isn't it? We cut you off, and now you're lashing out." For the first time, her mask slipped. Just for a heartbeat, her eyes flashed with something hot, raw, rage. Then her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I would be very, very careful if I were you. People who cause instability in this community tend to find life here becomes uncomfortable." It wasn't a threat disguised as neighborly advice. It was a threat, plain and undisguised. She turned her back on me, dismissing me like a bug. I walked home, blood boiling. Emily was right. Yelling wasn't going to stop her. Fred was right, too. Fighting her alone was suicide. Linda Prescott had all the power, the rules, the money, the fear of the neighborhood. And unless we found a way to beat her at her own game, we weren't just fighting for our lawn anymore. We were fighting for survival. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I heard her voice in my head. People who cause instability tend to find life uncomfortable. It wasn't just smug PTA banter. It was a warning, a promise. I found myself pacing the kitchen in the dark. The hostile Wi-Fi notice still spread across the counter. Emily came down at 2 a.m., hair tangled, eyes bleary. "You're still up?" she whispered. I held up the letter. This isn't about rules anymore. She's not just being petty. She's hiding something. Emily poured herself water, leaned against the counter. "Mark, it's Linda. She's a control freak with a clipboard. That's it." But the more I thought about it, the less it made sense. Why hijack the internet in the first place? Why siphon bandwidth from every house in the neighborhood? Why retaliate this viciously when Sophie locked her out? It wasn't about me mowing too low. It wasn't even about us cutting her access. It was about what we might have cut her off from. The idea sank into my gut like ice. When Sophie came down the next morning, hair sticking out in every direction, hoodie zipped to her chin, I slid the letter across the table. "I need you to do something," I said, voice low, "and you're not going to like it." She raised an eyebrow, spoon halfway to her mouth. "I'm listening." "The Clubhouse network, the one you locked her out of. I need you to get back in." Her spoon clattered. "Dad, are you serious? I triple encrypted that firewall. It'll take forever to break my own system. And why? So she can slap me with a cybercrime fine too?" "Because this isn't just about streaming movies," I said, leaning forward. "She threatened me last night, and she said something about community stability. She's using the bandwidth for more than just revenge. I want to know what." For a moment, Sophie just stared at me. Then the spark lit in her eyes, the one I'd seen when she was little, solving puzzles other kids didn't even notice. You want me to ghost in, she said slowly. Not break the door down this time. Slip through the window. I nodded. Just look around. Quiet. Find out what she's doing. Emily, standing in the doorway, crossed her arms. Mark, this is crazy. You're asking our daughter to break into a private network. This isn't a video game. It's illegal. Illegal is hijacking the entire neighborhood's internet, I shot back. Illegal is inventing hostile Wi-Fi fines. We need proof, Emily. Otherwise, she buries us under paperwork and bankrupts us before Christmas. Emily's jaw tightened. She wanted to argue, but she also knew I was right. Linda wasn't just petty anymore. She was dangerous. Sophie leaned back in her chair, smirking. I can do it, but I'll need time. And snacks. Lots of snacks. The next 2 days, Mission Control went dark. Sophie barely emerged except to grab chips and leave half-drunk sodas on every surface of the house. We'd hear the clack of her keyboard at 3 in the morning, the muttered curses of someone digging deeper than she was supposed to. By Tuesday night, she finally stumbled into the living room, laptop clutched like a prize. Okay, she said, voice shaking with adrenaline. You were right, Dad. It's not about us. It's about this. She dropped onto the couch, flipped the screen toward us. Lines of code, server diagrams, maps of connections, spiderwebbing across the screen. She's not just stealing bandwidth, she's building a private network, using every house in Ridgewood as a node to bounce traffic. It's like a digital smokescreen, makes it impossible to trace the origin. Emily's face drained of color. A smokescreen for what? Sophie tapped a key. A single word blinked on the screen, white against black. Viper. None of us spoke. The word hissed in the silence like a coiled snake. I don't know what it is yet, Sophie whispered. But whatever it is, it's big. And Mom, it's bad. The word Viper glared from Sophie's laptop like a venomous snake ready to strike. For a long moment, the three of us just stared. Emily's hand covered her mouth. Sophie's leg bounced with restless energy. My pulse thudded in my ears. Finally, Emily broke the silence. We're going to the police. Her voice was firm, sharp, the way it got when she was done entertaining nonsense. This is organized crime, Mark. Whatever she's doing, whatever this Viper thing is, it's bigger than us. We hand this over to the authorities and let them deal with it. Sophie shut the laptop with a snap. Bad idea. Emily rounded on her. Excuse me? Sophie leaned forward, eyes blazing. The second we show this to anyone local, Karen twists it. She says I hacked her private files, that I planted the data. And guess what? She's the PTA president. Everyone thinks she's a saint. Me? I'm a teenager with a laptop. Who do you think they're going to believe? The words hung heavy in the room. I hated to admit it, but Sophie was right. I could already picture it. Karen standing in front of the school board, crocodile tears glistening, telling everyone how the Carter family had waged a personal vendetta against her. She'd walk away clean, and Sophie would be the one in handcuffs. Emily's voice softened, but it was laced with fear. Mark, we can't ask her to keep going deeper. She's 16. I know, I said quietly, but we're already in it. Karen knows we cut her off. She's hammering us with fines. If Sophie hadn't looked under the hood, we'd never even know why. Sophie smirked, trying to cut the tension. I told you my coding obsession would come in handy someday. Emily shot her a look. This isn't funny. I rubbed my temples. The truth was, Emily was right. This was insane. We weren't detectives. We weren't the FBI. I sold insurance, for God's sake. My wife cleaned teeth, our daughter was in high school, and we were staring down something with a code name, offshore servers, and a digital fortress built out of stolen Wi-Fi. And yet, the alternative was worse. Doing nothing meant Karen kept her throne, siphoning bandwidth and money while we sat helpless in our own home. I looked at Sophie. She wasn't afraid, not anymore. She looked alive, energized, like she'd finally found a puzzle worth her brain power. You think you can get more? I asked. She nodded without hesitation. But I can't do it all from here. The servers are in the clubhouse. If I could plant a device on the rack, something to record keystrokes, capture unencrypted data, it'd give us everything. Emily's gasp was immediate. Absolutely not. You're not sneaking into the clubhouse like some burglar. Sophie's grin was sharp. I wasn't planning on going alone. They both turned to me, and that was the moment I realized what was happening. We weren't just a family anymore. We were co-conspirators. I exhaled slowly, the decision settling heavy in my chest. If we're doing this, we do it smart. No cowboy stunts. We plan, we pick our moment, and if anything goes wrong, we walk away. Understood? Sophie's grin widened. Emily's face fell. This is insane, Emily whispered. This could ruin us. I put a hand on hers. It could save us too. If Karen's just a petty tyrant, we'll prove it. But if she's running something bigger, I let the unfinished thought hang. We all knew the answer. We couldn't trust anyone, not the police, not the board, not the neighbors who'd already bent under Karen's heel. It was us. Just us. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel since the first notice slid under my door. Hope. Twisted, dangerous, reckless hope. The plan was insane. On paper, it looked like a one-way ticket to a jail cell, but it was the only plan we had. Sophie had built a custom device, something between a USB stick and a parasite. She called it a logger sniffer. It would attach to the PTA's server rack, silently record everything. Keystrokes, logins, traffic, even file transfers. Real proof, real evidence. But to get it in place, someone had to cross enemy lines. That someone, of course, was me. We spent 2 nights preparing. Sophie drew the map of the clubhouse from memory, complete with the location of the server room. Emily drilled me with what-ifs until my head spun. What if Karen came back early? What if the alarm tripped? What if the cameras caught me? My answers weren't reassuring. On Thursday, Sophie called us into her room, where the logger sniffer lay in the center of her desk like a crown jewel. "It's ready," she said. Her voice was too calm. Emily crossed her arms. "I hate this." "I know," Sophie said, "but if Dad plants this, we'll have hard proof. Not just screenshots, not just my word. Evidence. Enough to bring the whole thing down." She looked at me, eyes wide. "You'll only have to be in there 5 minutes. Less if the lock isn't stubborn." 5 minutes. It sounded short, harmless. It wasn't. The night of the job was cold and still, the kind of night where every sound carried too far. I dressed in black, something I'd only ever seen in movies. Sophie tucked the device into my pocket, her hands trembling just slightly. "Stick to the plan," she whispered. Emily kissed me at the door, her lips cold. "Mark, if anything happens..." "Nothing's going to happen," I lied. We moved like shadows across manicured lawns, Sophie and I crouching low. Emily's voice crackled in my ear through a walkie. "All clear. Karen's SUV is gone. She's still at the district meeting." The clubhouse loomed ahead, beige and smug as ever. The keypad by the door blinked red. Sophie leaned close, typing in the code she'd guessed. 0524. The date of the PTA's Beautification Committee anniversary, proudly printed in last month's newsletter. Karen's narcissism was her weakness. The keypad blinked green. The lock clicked open. We slipped inside. The air was stale, humming with the low whine of machines. Red dots blinked from motion sensors. "Stay low, stay slow," I whispered. We crawled like statues beneath the sensor's cones, moving inches at a time. My knees screamed. My heart hammered so loud I swore it would trip the alarm. Finally, we reached the office door, locked. I pulled out the lockpick set I'd ordered off Amazon 2 days prior. Amateur hour. My hands shook as I slid the pick in, listening for the clicks Sophie had drilled into my head. Click, click, snap. The first pick broke. Sophie's eyes widened. I swallowed hard, grabbed the backup, and tried again. 1 more tense minute. Then, click. The door swung open. We slipped inside. The room was small, dominated by a humming server rack glowing with sickly green light. Wires snaked across the floor like veins. "Go!" I hissed. Sophie darted forward, hands flying with practiced precision. She opened a panel, clipped the device to the rack, and connected 2 wires. The little LED on her gadget blinked once, then settled to steady green. "It's in," she whispered. That should have been it. Smooth exit. Mission accomplished. But Emily's voice exploded through the walkie, high and panicked. "Mark, get out! Now! Karen's car just pulled in. She's back early." Ice shot down my spine. Sophie and I bolted, retracing our steps in a clumsy rush. We ducked beneath the sensors, scrambled through the main room. My pulse spiked as headlights swept across the clubhouse windows. The front door yawned ahead. We sprinted. We burst into the night just as Karen's SUV rolled into her reserved space. We dove into the shadows of a line of pines, flattening against the cold ground as the engine cut. The driver's door opened. Karen stepped out, phone to her ear, barking orders at someone unseen. She didn't glance around, didn't notice the dirt-streaked, panting family 10 feet away. She unlocked the clubhouse and strode inside, heels clicking against the tile. We stayed frozen, not daring to breathe. Finally, when her voice faded deeper into the building, I tugged Sophie's sleeve. Move. We slipped away into the night. Back at home, adrenaline gave way to shaky laughter and cold terror. Emily clutched us both, whispering thanks to God. Sophie rushed to her computer, fingers flying. A moment later, lines of data filled the screen. "The logger's live," she said breathlessly. "We've got a direct feed." It worked. We'd done it. But the knot in my stomach tightened. Karen hadn't just come back early. She'd almost caught us. And if she ever suspected what we'd done, we weren't just breaking rules anymore. We'd declared war. The logger fed Sophie's laptop like a fire hose. At first it looked ordinary. Meeting agendas, bake sale flyers, spreadsheets. Nothing sinister about budget final 2.xlsx. But then came the other names. Files that felt wrong even before you opened them. viprcfg.seed, vipertunnel.map, wallet reconcile. Emily frowned. "That doesn't sound like PTA business." "No kidding," Sophie muttered. She split her screen in two. On one side, live keystrokes from the clubhouse server. On the other, a map she'd stitched together from the traffic logs. The map made my skin crawl. Our cul-de-sac was dotted in blue, each house glowing like a star. "What am I looking at?" I asked. Sophie tapped the screen. "Each dot is a house. Every router in the neighborhood is parts of their network. They're bouncing data through us like we're unwilling soldiers. It looks like Netflix streams, but it's not." Emily crossed her arms. "So, what is it?" "Encrypted blobs. Huge ones. Terabytes. Every time the PTA holds an event, budget meetings, talent shows, they push traffic through. The noise of everyone online gives them cover." I leaned closer. "Linda built this?" Sophie snorted. "Linda can barely use a spreadsheet. Someone else engineered this." A new window popped open. The logger reconstructed a chat client the server had tried to wipe. Messages stitched back together line by line. Elpresc, Node, 22 shaky, parents complaining about speed. VPR keeper, reroute, blame provider upgrades. Elpresc, Carter's kid locked the mesh from their side. Liability. VPR keeper, noise helps, keep him busy. Our name, right there on the screen. Emily's breath caught. Who is VPR keeper? Sophie dug into cached metadata, chasing down scraps. Most fields were blank, scrubbed, but one contact slipped through. R. Lee, Ridgewood High School, Raymond Lee, Clipboard Raymond, the meek treasurer who couldn't get through a report without sweating. The room went silent. "He's not a victim," Sophie whispered. "He's the keeper." On screen, more chat appeared, this time with an outside contact named Gable. They wrote about transfers, wallets, and STEM kits that were clearly something else. At the bottom of a vendor approval form, Sophie froze the screen. Signature, Raymond Lee. Emily's face was pale. All this time, and it was him. I thought back to every meeting where Linda barked orders and Raymond nodded along. We'd all pitied him. We'd all assumed he was her pawn. We were wrong. "He's the one running it," I said quietly. "Linda's just middle management." Sophie didn't look up from her screen. "And he's moving the next set of drives tomorrow night. 6 p.m. during the budget meeting. His calendar says Viper, secure handoff in his office." Emily grabbed my arm. "Mark, this is the FBI's problem, not ours. We can't chase people like this." "If we call now," I said, "what happens? They confiscate Sophie's laptop. Call it illegal hacking. Raymond plays the victim, and Karen walks away smiling." Emily shook her head, tears brimming. "This could destroy us." Sophie's fingers hovered over her keyboard. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was scared, but she was determined. "Dad's right. If we want to stop this, we need something undeniable, something physical. The drives." The thought settled over us like a storm cloud. I looked at my daughter, 16, brilliant, stubborn. I looked at my wife, terrified, loyal, fierce, and I knew the truth. We were past the point of safe choices. Tomorrow, I said, we get the proof. And then we burn this thing down. The logger kept feeding Sophie's rig, but I couldn't look at it anymore. The files, the chat fragments, every line was another reminder that we were dangling above a pit we couldn't climb out of alone. Emily said what I was already thinking. Mark, this is too big. We can't take on a man like Raymond ourselves. We need help. Her voice cracked. Not angry this time, just scared. And that scared me more than anything. Sophie didn't look up from the scrolling data. If we go to the local police, we're finished. Raymond shakes hands with half of them at football games. Karen has them in her pocket with donuts and coffee. They'll spin this as us trespassing, me hacking, you being paranoid. I rubbed my face. She wasn't wrong. Every road around us felt like a trap. But one thought had been gnawing at me since we saw that vendor form. The feds. Not the town cops, not county, bigger, untouchable. Do you remember Jim from college? I asked Emily. His cousin works for the Department of Justice. I sent him a Christmas card 2 years ago. Emily stared at me. You're talking about calling in a federal favor? Mark, this isn't borrowing a lawnmower. It's the only chance we have. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the contact list. For a second, all I heard was the hum of Sophie's computer fans. Then I hit dial. Jim's cousin David picked up after 4 rings. My voice felt foreign in my own mouth. I didn't give him the whole story, just the bare bones. I have credible information about a criminal enterprise involving community funds and illegal networks. It's time sensitive. We can't trust local authorities. There was a long silence. Then, you're serious? As a heart attack. Another pause. Then he gave me a name, a direct line. Call Detective Daniel Harland, Cybercrimes Task Force. He'll know what to do. And Mark, don't waste his time. I thanked him and hung up, my hands shaking. Emily's face was pale as chalk. Sophie just whispered, do it. So, I did. Harlan's voice was gravel and suspicion. I laid it all out, 20 minutes of breathless truth. Linda, Karen, Raymond, the logger, Viper, the drives, Sophie's feed. Every word felt like throwing stones into a black lake and waiting for the monster to surface. When I finally stopped talking, there was silence. Then Harlan said, if you're lying, you're in a world of trouble. And if you're not, then a lot of bad people are about to have a very bad day. He gave me a time and place. A coffee shop 2 towns over. Bring the laptop. Come alone. I didn't sleep that night, neither did Emily. She kept pacing, whispering worst-case scenarios. Sophie stayed glued to her rig, capturing everything. The next morning, I drove to the coffee shop with the laptop in a bag that suddenly felt like a bomb. Harlan was waiting with 2 agents who looked like they had been carved out of granite. They flipped through Sophie's summary file in silence. No raised eyebrows, no gasps, just grim nods. Finally, Harlan closed the laptop. It's enough to move. The budget meeting, when? Tomorrow, 6 p.m., Ridgewood High. He scribbled notes. We'll embed agents as parents. The room will be full of eyes. We need to catch Chen in the act, with the drives in hand. Otherwise, this collapses. I swallowed hard. What do you need from me? Harlan's eyes met mine, hard, tired eyes that had seen monsters before. We need a trigger, a distraction, something to pull focus while we move. You're already the thorn in their side, Mark. You're loud, angry, paranoid, perfect cover. You want me to cause a scene. That's exactly what I want. Get in Linda's face, argue, make them all look at you, give us 30 seconds of chaos. I wanted to laugh, but my throat was too dry. This was real. They were asking me to be bait. Harlan leaned forward. Can you do that? Images flashed in my head. Karen sneering on my lawn, Raymond's name in those files. Sophie's hands trembling over the keyboard. Emily's fear. Yes, I said, my voice low. I can do that. When I got home and told them, Emily nearly collapsed. They want you to walk into that room with him? Mark, he'll kill you. They'll be watching, I said, though my own voice betrayed the doubt. Sophie surprised us both. It's the only way. He trusts noise. We'll use it against him. She was right. We were past safe choices. Tomorrow night, Ridgewood High wouldn't just be hosting a budget meeting. It would be the stage for the sting. and I was the opening act. Saturday night, Ridgewood High looked the same as always. Kids' artwork taped to lockers, smell of floor wax, and stale popcorn in the halls. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. Emily fixed my tie before I left, her hands trembling. "You don't have to do this." "Yes," I said softly, "I do." Sophie pressed a thumb drive into my palm. "Backup of everything, just in case." Her eyes were fierce, but I could see the fear underneath. I kissed them both, then walked out into the cold night air. The cafeteria buzzed with the usual budget night chatter, folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, parents griping about rising dues. On the surface, it was Ridgewood at its most boring, but scattered among the crowd were the feds, plain clothes, tucked in like shadows. Karen stood at the podium in another beige suit, radiating smug authority. She was in her element, tapping her pen like a judge's gavel. Beside her sat Raymond Lee, the meek treasurer. Clipboard in front of him, glasses perched low, face calm, too calm. And at his feet, half hidden under the table, was a sleek silver briefcase. My stomach clenched. That was it. The drives, the heart of Viper. I spotted Harland at the back of the room, disguised as a bored dad. He gave me a tiny nod. My cue would come soon. The meeting droned on, landscaping contracts, a rule about mailbox flags, parents whispering, checking their phones. Then Karen gestured toward Raymond. "And now our treasurer will present the financial report." He cleared his throat, shuffling papers like always. His voice was steady, maybe too steady. "Our dues have been used wisely, covering routine maintenance, security upgrades, enrichment programs." A woman in a sharp suit stepped forward, smiling. "And, on behalf of the bank, we thank the Ridgewood PTA for your partnership." She handed Raymond the briefcase. He accepted it with a small nod, placing it by his chair. There it was, the handoff. I stood, my heart pounding. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cutting through the room. "I have a question." Dozens of heads turned. Karen's smile soured. "Mark, we'll take questions at the end." "No," I said, stepping forward. "I think the neighborhood deserves some answers now." Raymond's eyes flicked to me, just a flicker, but enough. He knew. "Why?" I asked, raising my voice. "Has my family been fined over $1,000 for made-up violations? Why was our internet hijacked? Why is money disappearing from these books?" Gasps, murmurs, parents twisting in their seats. Karen snapped, "You are out of order." I marched closer, jabbing a finger toward her. "Am I? Or am I the only one willing to call this what it is? Extortion? Theft?" Her mask slipped, anger twisting her face. "Sit down, Mark. Before what?" I roared. "Before your little Project Viper gets exposed." The word landed like a thunderclap. Karen staggered, eyes wide. Raymond froze. For a split second, the entire cafeteria was silent. Then chaos erupted. "FBI! Nobody move!" Harlan's voice cracked across the room as agents surged forward, badges raised, weapons drawn. Parents screamed, chairs scraped, the room dissolved into pandemonium. Raymond dove for the briefcase. Agents lunged, but he was faster, clutching it, shoving past Karen. He bolted for the side exit, panic replacing his usual meekness. But someone blocked the door. Fred, my neighbor, the man with the gnomes. He stood there, shaking but firm, clutching one of his ridiculous Elvis gnomes like a club. "You," he spat, "you told her to take my gnomes." Raymond tried to shove past, but Fred swung. The gnome connected with the briefcase, sending it skidding across the linoleum. The latch popped. Drives spilled out like silver bricks. Agents swarmed him, slamming him to the ground. Karen shrieked, flailing as cuffs snapped around her wrists. It was over in less than a minute. I stood frozen in the middle of the chaos, chest heaving, adrenaline roaring in my ears. Harland appeared beside me, calm amid the storm. "You did good," he said. "You gave us the window we needed." I looked at Fred, still clutching his cracked gnome. He gave me a shaky grin. "Worth it," he said. "That was for Norman." I almost laughed. Almost. The parents were herded out, dazed and whispering. The drives were bagged. Karen and Raymond were hauled away, faces pale and furious. Ridgewood's PTA would never look the same. As the dust settled, Emily and Sophie rushed in from the back. Emily's arms wrapped around me, trembling. Sophie's eyes were shining, Not with fear, but with vindication. We'd done it. We'd ripped the mask off the monster hiding in our neighborhood. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. The sirens faded into the night, leaving Ridgewood in stunned silence. Neighbors lingered on their lawns, whispering, clutching coffee mugs and phones, staring at the clubhouse as if it had turned into a haunted house. For years, we'd thought it was just a place for potlucks and school fundraisers. Tonight, it was the scene of a federal sting. By the time I got home, Emily was already on the porch. She threw her arms around me before I even made it up the steps. Her whole body trembled against mine. "You're insane," she whispered, half laughing, half crying. "But you're mine." Sophie pushed past us and ran inside, already firing up her laptop. She couldn't let go, not yet. She needed to see it on the screen. The system dismantled, the feeds dark. I followed her in and stood behind her chair. The logger blinked, then flatlined. The constant stream of stolen traffic. Gone. The neighborhood mesh, severed. "It's dead," Sophie said quietly. "Viper's gone." Emily leaned against the doorway, exhaustion etched into her face. So are Karen and Raymond. The reality of it settled over me. The smug clipboard queen in handcuffs. The meek treasurer revealed as the kingpin. It was almost too much to process. By morning, the story was everywhere. Local news vans clogged our street. Headlines blared, "PTA president and treasurer arrested in federal raid." Massive illegal network uncovered in suburban neighborhood. Neighbors gawked, pointed, whispered. Some crossed the street to thank me. Others just shook their heads, still in disbelief that our cookie-cutter block had been the hub of something so rotten. Fred came over carrying a box. Inside was his damaged Elvis gnome, its hat chipped, one arm cracked. He held it up with a grin. "Battle scar," he said, "worth every penny." I laughed for the first time in weeks. "You saved the sting, Fred. You're a hero." He shrugged. "Hero's a strong word, but hey, maybe now I can bring Norman and Netted back to the front yard where they belong." We both laughed until tears rolled down my cheeks. It felt good. It felt normal. The next week brought more shocks. Sophie, despite being hailed online as the teen hacker who saved Ridgewood, was suspended from school for 2 weeks for unauthorized use of network resources. When the principal handed me the letter, I wanted to tear it in half. "She helped take down a criminal ring. And you're punishing her?" "The rules are the rules," the principal said flatly. Sophie smirked on the way out. "Guess I'm grounded to my computer." Emily rolled her eyes. "Don't encourage her." But I couldn't help it. My daughter had faced down a monster with nothing but a keyboard. She deserved a medal, not detention. One evening, a new envelope appeared in our mailbox. I froze at the sight of the PTA logo, my stomach twisting. But this time, the letter inside was different. It was a check. Refunds for every bogus fine Karen had ever slapped on us. Tucked beside it was a handwritten note from the interim board. "Thank you. We won." I read it twice before handing it to Emily. She covered her mouth, eyes wet. We sat on the porch together that night, sipping coffee while Sophie tapped away upstairs. The sun sank low, painting the neighborhood gold. For the first time in months, it was just a sunset. Not a deadline, not a warning. I looked out at my lawn, overgrown by half an inch. No one cared, not anymore. It was just grass, but it was my grass. And after everything we'd been through, I swore I'd never take that simple truth for granted again. Weeks passed, but Ridgewood still buzzed like a hornet's nest. Reporters camped out, chasing the suburban sting. Parents whispered at pickup lines. And every now and then, I'd catch someone looking at me like I'd grown 10 feet taller, or like I'd painted a target on my back. Life was quieter, but not the same. How could it be? Karen was awaiting trial, her beige power suits replaced by an orange jumpsuit. She still glared like she ran the place, even in mugshots. Raymond, the man we all thought was a pushover, was gone, swallowed into federal custody with a laundry list of charges. Conspiracy, fraud, exploitation. He wasn't coming back. The neighborhood was different. The new PTA board sent out friendly newsletters about bake sales and Teacher Appreciation Week. No hidden fines, no threats, no encrypted networks buried inside the file attachments. Just cake recipes and sign-up sheets. Normal. Normal felt strange. One afternoon, I mowed the lawn. The blade roared, spitting neat rows of clippings. For the first time in a long time, it was just me versus the grass. No clipboard watching, no rule about 2 inches minimum. Halfway across the yard, I caught myself grinning. My yard, my rules. Emily leaned on the porch railing with a glass of iced tea. "Careful," she called. "Don't scalp it, or you'll get a $100 fine." I laughed. God, it felt good to laugh with her. To know we'd made it through the fire and somehow come out stronger. Sophie wandered out, laptop tucked under her arm. "The FBI asked if I'd consider an internship someday," she said casually, as if it were nothing. Emily nearly dropped her glass. "You're 16, Sophie smirked. "Guess they like my work." I ruffled her hair. "Just remember, no more building firewalls in our neighbors' basements." She rolled her eyes, but I could see the pride in her smile. My little girl had turned into a warrior with a keyboard, and maybe, just maybe, the world needed warriors like her. Fred stopped by later, proudly arranging his gnomes back in the front yard. Norman and Nettie were reunited with the Elvis King, now sporting a glued-back hat. "Balance restored," he said with a grin. I shook his hand. "You saved the day, Fred. With a garden gnome," he chuckled. "Sometimes the smallest soldiers fight the biggest battles." I couldn't argue with that. At night, when the house was quiet, I thought about everything we'd seen. About the way power corrupts, about the monsters hiding in plain sight, about how a clipboard and a rulebook had nearly crushed us, but hadn't. I thought about the risk we'd taken, about my wife, steady and strong, about my daughter, braver than she knew, about neighbors who found courage in the unlikeliest places. And I thought about me, a man who just wanted to mow his lawn in peace, but who learned how far he'd go to protect his family. The truth is, you never really know your own limits until someone pushes you past them. You don't know what you're capable of until the people you love are on the line. For me, it started with a lawnmower and a clipboard, and it ended with federal agents storming a PTA meeting. Crazy, right? But that's Ridgewood. I looked out over my grass one last time that night, long and uneven, and I laughed. Justice doesn't always come knocking on your door. Sometimes you have to build the door yourself, pick the lock, and drag justice screaming into the light. And when it's over, you pour yourself a glass of iced tea, sit on the porch with the people you love, and remember one simple truth. It's not about the grass. It never was. It's about the ground you're willing to stand on, no matter who tries to take it from you.